employment relationships as well as labor unions. Next, we'd like to outline some advantages and disadvantages with entering Brazil via joint venture strategy. Some advantages include the fact that we'd be able to overcome entry barriers, we'd be able to reduce our political risk in the country as well. Also, as with many joint venture strategies, we'd be able to enter the market with a lower initial capital investment and spread the risk of operating in a foreign nation. Also, we'd be able to acquire skills from our local partner and contacts of value that would be integral in our business operations there. Also, our local partner would be able to give us insight into cultural norms and values, which would be very important when Disney would be operating in the country. And as I mentioned before, would shed some light on employment practices. Now, this would not be perfect because there are some disadvantages to entering with a JV. One of the biggest problems is partner selection. Because Brazil is characterized by a very new theme park industry, it is not that highly developed, therefore we would run the risk of choosing the right and appropriate partner that would have enough experience in the industry. Also, Brazil has many hidden costs that are associated with business operations there, and they're referred to as Custo Brazil. Also, we would be a little afraid to depend too much on our partner. That would be a disadvantage, as well as there might be ownership or strategy issues that we might come across, or strategic direction, cross-cultural communication. And another issue that may arise has to do with technology, so we'd have to make sure that we wall off our technology and make sure that we have contractual safeguards. Next, we would like to move on to the marketing mix plan, first of which is the brand strategy. As many of you know, Disney has a very strong brand recognition, and one of the main reasons for that is because they employ a global brand strategy. They standardize the brand image and have consistent positioning and advertising worldwide. Also, they employ a top-down approach, so the brand strategy is developed within the corporate headquarters, and then the subsidiaries take on that approach and implement it in their countries. Also, the Walt Disney Company uses an integrated international marketing strategy, which means that they have cross-referential marketing. So if they come out with a movie, they often produce merchandise to go with the movie, and one markets and advertises the other. And as Roy Disney, which is Walt Disney's son, once said, this sums up their brand strategy pretty well. They target not only the young, but also the young at heart.
Brazil Disneyland Resort is a compilation of services, namely the resort and theme park, supply chain activities, and employment. The resort and theme park has considerations on layout, attractions, and the hotels involved, which create the resort aspect of it. The theme park itself will be circular, and in keeping with cultural aspects of Brazil, will have a rainforest pavilion in the center, resembling Epcot and in its circular fashion. The attractions within the theme park would be pretty standard Disney attractions. There would be roller coasters, flat rides, dark rides, and ambient entertainment. There will be a specifically child-oriented segment to the park, making the park able to cater to all ages. Like I said, a main part of the resort aspect of Brazil Disneyland Resort is their hotel. And this is based on the visitor's economic and travel status. These hotels would provide services and amenities not available to patrons staying in non-Disney lodging. A secondary activity is Disney's supply chain in Brazil, which we would use our local partners' knowledge to gain their raw materials and by using their past experience. In order to import goods into Brazil, there's an extra 44% added on to the value of the good. So as much as we can internalize, we're going to try to do. Disney will employ locally through our joint venture partner, and the training of these employees will be standardized, as are all other Disney resorts. Disney uses both standardization and adaptation while developing its theme parks. The exact same Disney characters will be present in Brazil Disneyland Resort as they are in Walt Disney World Orlando or Disneyland Anaheim. The Disney park layout is generally the same for all of the theme parks that Disney owns and operates, and the cast members will go through the same training as in all of the other Disney parks and resorts. The policy of adaptation that Disney has extends to culture, education, architecture, and food and beverages. Culturally, there will be more of a thematic focus to the park, focusing a lot more on Disney's Latin American films. Educationally, Brazil Disneyland Resort will strive to provide rainforest protection information as well as that of the endangered species of the rainforest. The architecture of the resort and theme park will be based on traditional Brazilian architecture and using the same building materials as they would typically. There will also be arrangements for covered walkways and shady areas around the park. Importantly as well, the food and beverages will be varied according to local preferences and local length of time for meals.
Okay, due to the current economic climate, we have taken on a more adaptive pricing strategy as opposed to a standardized. Keeping in mind these 3 points here: inflation rates, exchange rates, supply and demand. First, inflation rates. Brazil has a long history of a very volatile inflation rate. To minimize this uncertainty, Disney will need to keep a close observation of this rate and then adjust the price accordingly. Second, exchange rates. Currently, the conversion rate is $1 to 2.2 Brazilian real. There is some transaction risk. To minimize this risk, the forward and spot rate should be negotiated initially. Disney's long-term investment will be affected by inflation, so the spot rate should be in agreement up front. Thirdly, supply and demand, basic economics here. We have to ensure adequate demand for enough customers, mostly in terms of our target market, and our target market is not just Brazil, Sao Paulo, it's also the surrounding areas such as Argentina and Chile. In determining the price, and we would consider the purchasing power parity and the demand. All right.
Next, I will tell you about place. Next slide, please. In Brazil, we were offered, actually, in 2006, Bromlux Park. It was for a 30-year lease, and it was about 432 acres, but then we realized that the park is actually only 1/3 of the actual typical Disney resort. Our next option was to go into the city of Sao Paulo itself. It was a great location because of the proximity to airports. It is also one of the richest cities and homes Latin America's largest stock exchange. And Sao Paulo also has 12% of Brazil's GDP. Our third option was to look outside of Sao Paulo. We wanted to stay close to the city because Sao Paulo does have Brazil's best infrastructure and labor force. But due to government land protection within the city, we thought maybe going up closer to the northwest areas, we could possibly find room to expand as well once the park has been established. Next, I will tell you about distribution. In Sao Paulo, there are 3 main airports. Sao Paulo International Airport, which is in the metropolitan area of the city. We also have International Airport of Viracopos, and that one is located northwest of the city, which would probably be easier for travelers to Disneyland Resort if we were to go outside the city. And we also have Aeropuerto de Congonhas. Within the city, there is a modernized underground metro system.